My first questions go to Deputy Energy Minister Bezot Namatov. What is the current state of play for exploration and production in Uzbekistan? Could you maybe provide a summary of where the industry is now and what progress has been made in the past 5 years?
So we were even consumers of gas and liquid hydrocarbons, but lately became more natural gas consumers, and because of the lack of liquid hydrocarbon reserves. And I can say that Uzbekistan used to produce about 10 million tons of liquid hydrocarbons prior 2000, and thus was the consumption. Accordingly, was the consumption, and close to the first decade, end of the first decade of 21st century, we changed the direction to the natural gas, and we have one of the most extensive network of CNG stations in former Soviet Union. And in some regions, 99% of the cars are running on the natural gas. You can say NGVs, right? Mm-hmm. And thus the consumption is growing. And in order to support the consumption, the growth, economic growth within the country, which has boomed since the Shavkat Mirziyoyev have became president and liberalized the financial market, investment markets have been created, foreign investments are welcomed, and we have made a substantial changes to the legislation, created new ones in order to make it possible, right? So the main focus was not only the big projects, mega project, but also the small and medium business to improve the quality of the life and create additional jobs. That's why I can say that in the last 5 years, the consumption of natural gas have grown significantly. I can say that only the population's consumption for the last 4 years have changed from 9 billion to 13 billion in 2021. 9 billion was in 2016, I think. So we are making it possible for the business to grow by supplying substantial amounts of natural gas. And that's why we are planning to go in the path of creating more jobs within the country and start a chain of added value chain, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. By processing the gas and producing, I would say, polymers and chemicals, which will be further used in other productions like detergents or the plastic products within the country, right? Mm-hmm. So, which is at least 3 or 4 times more profitable than just selling the gas. There are some directions in the where you can make 10 times more profit out of the gas than just exporting it. So we have processing plants, and we're planning the new ones. We have 2 big processing plants, Shultan Gas Chemical Complex and Uzbekistan Gas Chemical Complex. Both of them are producing the different type of polymers. We have 2 oil refineries, Bukhara and Fergana. Fergana is one of the first ones in Central Asia, which was built in early 20th century. And Bukhara refinery have been built at the end of 20th century, which is still fairly new, and we are working on improving its quality and increase the capacity in cooperation with Korean SK, engineering company called SK, and Fergana refinery is given to the company called Jazak Petroleum for management, and they are also optimizing the production and improving the quality of the produced products. For example, they're starting to produce more eco-friendly fuels of high octane and more, cleaner than the ones that were produced before. they're optimizing and they doing the project for decarbonization of the production facilities. They're cooperating with Air Products to install the new hydrogen units and hydrogen production units to produce gray hydrogen, which will be further used for as a pilot for public transportation in Fergana. We're working on that as well. And we are increasing the capacity of Shurtan gas chemical Shurtan gas chemical complex to produce additional 300,000 tons of polymers annually. And we have two projects under consideration: methanol to olefin. There is MTO1, MTO2, and we have another approximately 50 projects aimed to deep processing of hydrocarbons, and process every drop of it. So there will be no byproducts, or everything will be processed and thrown into economy. So that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for your very expansive answer. So a lot of applications for natural gas in Uzbekistan, and a lot of different plans, different avenues for adding value to the resource. So you mentioned the remaining gas reserves in Uzbekistan. Where are they located in the country? And even though Uzbekistan's basins were first developed in the Soviet era, what are the prospects for new gas discoveries?
I should say the gas reserves are split into evenly to Bukhara-Khiva region, Amu Darya Basin, and Ustyurt Plateau. And we are making new discoveries, more discoveries in Ustyurt Plateau, which was not as extensively studied as Bukhara-Khiva region. I would say Amu Darya Basin, where we have the main production facilities now, the field facilities. But we are going deeper in Ustyurt. Latest discoveries of the fields are more than 4 kilometers. And I think that we will have a lot of discoveries specifically in Ustyurt regions. It doesn't mean that we're going to focus only on Ustyurt region. I think that we are rerunning seismic and exploration works in Amu Darya Basin as well, and other parts of the country. Recently, we have reached an agreement with Russian Rosgeology in cooperation with Jizakh Petroleum. They're going to conduct also an extensive exploration program, only exploration program in Ustyurt and other unprospected areas of the country. So we are how to say properly in English, we are investing more in exploration, which was not done in early 21st century. So the main focus was on creating an infrastructure and improving the production. So the latest projects were also aimed to that, but not much was done when it comes to the exploration. Only a few small projects in RLC Basin were done. That was limited to only one project, right? And some work was done with Gazprom, but we're now doing an extensive study to understand the petroleum system of the country. So I think that in the near future we will have new discoveries in Lower Jurassic, Permian, and so on.
Okay, and we touched on this, but what is the outlook for Uzbek gas production? So the government has said before it plans to cease gas exports by 2025. You mentioned that the situation reversed with Russia already. That now you're taking gas from Russia rather than sending it there. What about the outlook for exports to China?
Well, Ministry of Energy's main task is to create a system of sufficient supplies for the economy of energy resources. not only natural gas, but also electric energy, the power.
Mhm.
We are how to say, we are moving from the economy which was based on only its internal capacity for energy resources. Thus, its growth was heavily dependent on it, right? We're now saying that letting the economy go run freely, but our main purpose is to supply sufficient amount of energy resources, which means that we are open to the imports as long as it brings benefit to economy and improves its GDP growth, right? Usually, in order to ensure the GDP growth, you always have to have a reserve. We do realize that it's going to cost more and more expensive if you go deeper, right? Drilling is expensive, treatment maybe will be expensive. The new areas will require more capex in order to create the infrastructure in the place, especially in the Usut region, which is mostly uninhabited and desert areas, right? So, but we don't want economy to be tied to what we are doing in oil and gas sector. We are now improving the infrastructure, gas transportation infrastructure, in order to, if necessary, import the amount of gas we need to have economy growing in aimed pace, like at least 5-6%. But we want to have reserves in the system, contracted amount of gas, which would be necessary for the economy if there will be certain facilities, let's say, start earlier than it's planned. We need to have an extra amount of gas in the system, right? This is our aim to ensure. So yes, we want to decrease, as I said when I was answering your first question, that we want more added value products produced here. And if it requires decreasing the amount of export, why not? So those 50 projects are all aimed to deep processing of gas. We will use the latest licenses. We are creating I want to go back to that MTO project that I mentioned, methanol to olefin. This is an idea of creating a sort of a cluster where each stage of the gas processing might be owned by one or two companies, or it can be a joint venture, or it can be a private owned in an offtake basis. So utilities can be one company, technical gas can be one company, and end product can be bought off by the company. So it would be pre-contracted in every stage. So it's a new approach to attract investments and ensure the target IRR, internal rate of revenues, for each stage.